You felt it, didn't you? That quiet sting in your chest after you said one word too many. The conversation ended, the door closed, and you replayed it. Why did I explain myself? Why did I defend that decision? Why did I let them pull that reaction out of me? You gave away something in that moment, and somewhere deep down you knew it. You handed over your composure, your mystery, your power, all for the sake of being understood by someone who was never really listening. Here is a truth that most people will spend their entire lives avoiding. The more you speak, the less weight your words carry. The more you explain, the more you invite doubt. The more you react, the more control you surrender. We have been taught that speaking up is strength, that having the last word is winning, that silence is weakness. But the ancient Stoics understood something the modern world has forgotten. The most powerful force in any room is not the loudest voice. It is the calm, deliberate, unshakable presence of someone who has nothing to prove. Epictetus, who rose from slavery to become one of history's greatest teachers, said it plainly. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. He was not talking about manners. He was talking about power. He understood that the person who listens controls the conversation, and the person who speaks without thinking gives himself away. Silence is not the absence of strength. Silence is strength that has learned restraint. Think about water for a moment. The shallow stream is the one that makes all the noise, rushing, splashing, announcing itself to everyone who passes. But the deep ocean moves in silence. It does not need to prove how powerful it is. You feel its power simply by standing near it. That is the kind of presence we are talking about today. The stillness that commands respect without demanding it. The quiet that makes people lean in instead of tune out. This video is not about becoming cold or distant. It is not about giving people the silent treatment or hiding behind a wall. This is about something far deeper. Learning when to speak, when to stay silent, and how to use that silence as the most strategic tool you own. By the end of this video, you will never over-explain yourself again. You will stop reacting to people who are trying to provoke you. And you will understand why the most respected people in any room are almost always the quietest. Before we go deeper, do something simple for me. If this message is already speaking to you, hit that like button. It tells me you are ready for this. Drop a comment with the words, "Silence is my power," to anchor it in your mind. Subscribe to this channel, because we are building something here, a quiet army of people who refuse to give their power away. And stay with me until the very end, because the final principle is the one that changes everything. Let's begin. Number 1. Silence is control. Before you can master a conversation, you must master yourself. And the first sign of a person who has mastered himself is that he does not need to fill every silence with sound. Most people are terrified of silence. A pause in conversation feels unbearable to them, so they rush to fill it with words, any words, just to escape the discomfort. They talk to ease their own anxiety, not because they have something worth saying. And in doing so, they reveal exactly how little control they have over themselves. The Stoics believed that self-control was the foundation of all other virtues. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the entire Roman Empire, wrote in his private journal a reminder to himself. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Think about what that means in a conversation. You cannot control what someone says to you. You cannot control whether they provoke you, insult you, or try to bait you into a reaction. But you can control whether you respond, when you respond, and whether you speak at all. That control is the beginning of real power. When you choose silence, you are not being passive. You are exercising the highest form of discipline a human being can practice, the discipline of restraint. Anyone can blurt out the first thing that comes to mind. That requires nothing. But to feel the urge to speak, to feel that pressure rising in your chest, and to consciously hold it, that is mastery. That is a person who owns himself. Imagine two people in a heated meeting. One of them speaks constantly, defending, explaining, reacting to every comment, scrambling to make sure everyone understands his side. The other sits calmly, listening, speaking only when it matters, and when he finally does speak, the entire room goes quiet. Who holds the power in that room? Not the one who spoke the most. The one who spoke the least, but meant every word. His silence made his words valuable. His restraint made him magnetic. Here is how you begin to practice this. The next time you feel that urgent pressure to speak, to defend yourself, to jump in, pause for just 3 seconds. Breathe. Ask yourself, do these words add anything, or am I just trying to relieve my own discomfort? Most of the time, you will find that silence serves you better. And every time you choose it, you are training the muscle of control. You are becoming someone who acts from intention, not impulse. Number 2. The power of the pause. There is a space between what happens to you and how you respond. Most people never find it. They live their entire lives reacting instantly, controlled by every comment, every insult, every trigger that comes their way. But within that space, that tiny moment between stimulus and response, lies everything. Your freedom. Your dignity. Your power. And the gateway to that space is the pause. Viktor Frankl, who survived the darkest conditions a human being can endure, discovered this truth. He wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response." The Stoics understood this 2,000 years before him. Epictetus taught that it is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about events. And the pause is where judgment lives. It is where you decide who you are going to be in this moment, instead of letting the moment decide for you. When someone says something designed to provoke you, the untrained mind reacts in an instant. The heart races, the words fly out, and the damage is done before you even realize what happened. But the trained mind pauses. It lets the provocation hang in the air. And in that silence, something remarkable happens. The other person begins to feel uncertain. They expected a reaction, and you gave them stillness instead. Your pause becomes more powerful than any clever comeback could ever be. Think of a master chess player. They do not move the moment their opponent moves. They sit. They study the board. They let the silence stretch, and in that stillness, they see what the impulsive player can never see. The pause is not hesitation. The pause is calculation. It is the difference between someone who reacts to life and someone who responds to it with intention. Silence in the pause also does something else. It signals confidence. When you do not rush to answer, you communicate that you are not threatened, that you are not desperate for approval, that you are comfortable in the quiet. People are drawn to that. They sense the steadiness in it. The person who pauses before speaking seems wiser, calmer, more in control, because they are. Practice this starting today. When someone asks you a difficult question, or says something that stirs an emotion in you, do not answer immediately. Let one full breath pass. Let the silence sit. You will feel the urge to fill it, but resist. That single breath is the space where your power lives. In that breath, you stop being a puppet of your reactions and become the author of your responses. Comment below if you are ready to claim that space. Type, "The pause is my power." Number 3. Never explain yourself to everyone. Over-explaining is one of the quietest ways we give our power away, and almost no one notices they are doing it. You make a decision, and immediately you feel the need to justify it. You set a boundary, and then you rush to soften it with 3 paragraphs of reasons. You say no, and then you apologize for saying no. Each time you do this, you are silently telling the world that you need their approval to feel okay about your own choices. And the world will happily take that power from you. The Stoics had no patience for this. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does. He understood that the moment you make your peace dependent on other people understanding you, you have chained yourself to their opinions. And those opinions will never be fully satisfied. The more you explain, the more questions you invite. The more you justify, the weaker your position appears. Here is the paradox. The people who deserve an explanation rarely need one, and the people who demand one rarely deserve it. When someone respects you, they trust your judgment. They do not require a detailed defense of every choice you make. But when someone is looking to undermine you, no explanation will ever be enough. They will twist your words, pick them apart, and use your own justifications against you. Silence denies them that weapon entirely. Think about the most respected people you have ever known. Did they explain themselves constantly? Did they apologize for their boundaries, justify their decisions, and seek approval at every turn? No. They moved through life with a quiet certainty. When they said no, it was a complete sentence. When they made a decision, they did not put it up for debate. Their confidence was not loud. It was simply unshakable. And that unshakable quality came from one place: they did not need anyone else to validate their choices. This does not mean you become rigid or refuse to ever share your reasoning with people who matter. It means you stop scattering your explanations to everyone who demands them. You learn the difference between communication and justification. Communication is sharing from a place of strength. Justification is defending from a place of fear. One builds respect. The other erodes it. Start practicing this. The next time you feel the urge to over-explain, stop after the first sentence. State your decision, then let the silence do the rest. You will feel uncomfortable. Your mind will scream that you owe them more. But you do not. A clear boundary needs no defense. A confident decision needs no justification. Let your silence say what your explanations never could, that you trust yourself, even when others do not. Number 4. Listen like a Stoic. While you are talking, you are learning nothing. This is one of the simplest truths in the world, and yet most people ignore it completely. They treat conversations like contests, waiting impatiently for their turn to speak, barely hearing the other person, already loading the next thing they want to say. They are not listening. They are reloading. And in their hurry to be heard, they miss everything that actually matters. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, is said to have observed that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should use them in that proportion. The Stoics understood that listening was not a passive act. It was a source of power. The person who truly listens gains information, understanding, and insight. They learn what the other person wants, what they fear, what drives them. And knowledge like that is the foundation of every kind of strength, whether in business, in relationships, or in conflict. When you listen deeply, something interesting happens. People reveal themselves. Give a person silence and space, and they will tell you who they are. They will show you their intentions, their insecurities, their true motives, often without even realizing it. The loud person, the one always talking, learns nothing about anyone. But the quiet observer, the one who listens with full attention, sees everything. And the one who sees everything holds the advantage in every situation. Think of the most charismatic people you have ever met. Strangely, many of them are not the ones who dazzled you with stories about themselves. They are the ones who made you feel heard. They asked questions. They paused. They gave you their complete attention, and in doing so, they made you feel like the most important person in the room. That is the secret. People do not remember how impressive you were. They remember how you made them feel. And nothing makes a person feel more valued than being truly listened to. Listening like a Stoic also protects you. When you speak too much, you reveal too much. You give away your plans, your emotions, your weaknesses. But when you listen more than you speak, you stay a mystery. You gather information while giving little away. You remain calm and observant while others expose themselves through their constant talking. In this way, silence is not just respectful. It is strategic. Begin practicing this today. In your next conversation, make it your goal to understand the other person completely before you say a single word about yourself. Ask one more question than feels natural. Resist the urge to interrupt, to compare, to one-up. Just listen. You will be amazed at what people tell you when you simply give them the silence to speak. And you will be amazed at how much more respect you earn by saying less. Number 5. Let silence answer disrespect. Someone will eventually try to provoke you. They will say something designed to get under your skin, to pull a reaction out of you, to drag you down into their chaos. And in that moment, you will face a choice that reveals everything about your character. You can react, and hand them the satisfaction they were hunting for. Or you can remain silent, and demonstrate a strength they cannot touch. The Stoics knew which choice belonged to the powerful. Epictetus taught that no one can hurt you without your permission. When someone insults you, the insult itself has no power. The power comes entirely from your reaction to it. If you stay calm, if you refuse to engage, the insult falls to the ground harmless. But the moment you react, the moment you raise your voice or rush to defend yourself, you have given the other person exactly what they wanted. You have shown them they can control your emotions. And there is no greater weakness than that. Silence in the face of disrespect is not surrender. It is dominance. When you refuse to react, you communicate something that words never could. You tell the other person that their attempt to provoke you was beneath your notice. That they are not important enough to disturb your peace. That you operate on a level they cannot reach. There is no comeback more devastating than calm indifference. The person who wanted to anger you is left standing there, holding their provocation, with nowhere to put it. Think about how a small dog barks frantically at a larger animal that simply ignores it. The barking is desperate, loud, full of energy. But the larger animal does not even turn its head. It does not need to. Its silence is its statement. It knows its own power, and that knowledge makes the noise irrelevant. When someone tries to provoke you and you respond with stillness, you become that larger presence. Unmoved. Unbothered. Untouchable. This is not about suppressing your feelings or pretending nothing happened. Internally, you may notice the sting, the flash of anger, the urge to fire back. That is human. But the Stoic does not let that internal stirring become an external reaction. He feels it, observes it, and lets it pass without acting on it. The disrespect reveals the character of the person who offered it. Your silence reveals the strength of yours. Practice this restraint deliberately. The next time someone says something meant to provoke you, do nothing. Hold their gaze if you wish, but say nothing. Let the silence stretch until it becomes uncomfortable, not for you, but for them. You will feel your power return. You will feel the situation shift. Because in that silence, you are no longer the one being tested. You have become the one doing the testing. Type it in the comments if you are ready. Their words cannot move me. Number 6. Guard your plans in silence. There is a powerful temptation, whenever we begin something new, to announce it to the world. We get an idea, a goal, a dream, and immediately we want to tell everyone. We want to be seen as ambitious, as driven, as someone going somewhere. But the Stoics understood a quieter, wiser path. Move in silence. Let your results announce themselves. The work that matters is done away from the noise, in the disciplined quiet where no one is watching. There is a strange phenomenon that happens when we talk about our goals too soon. The talking itself begins to feel like progress. We describe our plans in vivid detail, we receive the nods and the encouragement, and our mind mistakes that feeling of being admired for the satisfaction of actual achievement. We get the reward before we have earned it, and our motivation quietly drains away. The Stoics would say the energy meant for action gets spent on words instead. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be, and simply be one. The same applies to your ambitions. Do not waste your energy describing the person you intend to become. Become him in silence, and let the world discover the result. When you guard your plans, you protect them from the doubts of others, from the discouragement of people who could never imagine doing what you are doing, and from your own temptation to settle for the applause of intention rather than the reward of accomplishment. There is also a strategic protection in silence. When you keep your plans to yourself, no one can stand in your way, because no one knows where you are headed. You move quietly, you build steadily, and by the time people notice what you have done, it is already done. There is nothing for them to talk you out of. There is nothing for them to compete with. You simply appear one day with the finished result, and your silence throughout the entire process becomes part of the power of the reveal. Consider how the most impressive transformations always seem to happen quietly. The person who disappears for a year and returns completely changed. They did not narrate every step. They did not post every small victory. They went quiet, they did the work, and they let the change speak when it was complete. That silence was not secrecy for its own sake. It was focus. It was the refusal to dilute their energy by spilling it into conversations instead of pouring it into the work. Begin guarding your plans now. The next time you feel the urge to announce a goal, pause and ask yourself, am I sharing this to gain something, or to get the feeling of progress without the work? Choose one or two people you truly trust, if you need support, and stay quiet with everyone else. Let your discipline live in the silence. And when the results arrive, you will not need to say a word. They will speak loudly enough on their own. Number 7. The stillness that commands respect. We arrive now at the deepest principle of all, the one that ties every other together. It is not about silence as a tactic, or restraint as a tool. It is about becoming a certain kind of person. A person whose very presence carries a quiet weight. A person who walks into a room and changes its temperature without saying a single word. This is the stillness that commands respect, and it cannot be faked. It can only be built. The Stoics called the highest goal of life tranquility, a deep inner calm that no external event can disturb. Seneca wrote that the mind that is anxious about future events is miserable, and that true peace comes from within. When you cultivate that inner stillness, when your sense of who you are no longer depends on what others think or say or do, you develop a presence that people can feel. You stop performing. You stop seeking. You simply are, and that quiet self-possession is the most magnetic quality a human being can have. Think about why we are so often drawn to calm people. In a world full of noise, anxiety, and people desperate to be seen, the person who is at peace stands out like a single still point in a storm. They do not chase attention, and so attention finds them. They do not demand respect, and so respect is given freely. Their stillness is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is the sign of a person who has done the inner work, who needs nothing from the room, and who therefore has everything. This stillness changes how you speak, too. When you finally do speak, your words land with weight, because they are rare and deliberate. The person who talks constantly creates a kind of background noise that people stop hearing. But the person who speaks rarely, and only when it matters, makes everyone lean in. Their silence gives their words value. Their restraint gives their presence power. They have learned that you do not command a room by being the loudest in it. You command it by being the most composed. Building this stillness is the work of a lifetime, but it begins with small daily choices. It begins each time you choose to pause over the impulse. Each time you let silence answer disrespect. Each time you guard your plans, listen more than you speak, and refuse to explain yourself to people who only want to tear you down. Every one of those choices is a brick. And slowly, quietly, you are building a presence that no one can shake, because it is no longer dependent on anything outside of you. So here is your final practice, and it is the simplest of all. Spend a few minutes each day in deliberate silence. No phone. No noise. No distraction. Just you, sitting with yourself, getting comfortable in the quiet. Most people cannot do this. They are terrified of their own stillness. But as you practice it, you will find something extraordinary happening. The silence that once felt empty begins to feel powerful. And the calm you build in those quiet moments begins to follow you everywhere you go. Let me bring you back to where we started. That quiet regret you felt after saying one word too many. You do not have to feel that anymore. You understand now that you do not need the last word. You need peace. You do not need everyone to understand you. You need to trust yourself. You do not need to react to every provocation, explain every decision, or fill every silence. You need only to remember that the most powerful person in any room is almost always the quietest, because their power does not come from their words. It comes from their stillness. Silence is not weakness. It never was. Silence is the language of people who have nothing to prove. So say less. Listen more. Pause before you react. Guard your peace. And watch how the world begins to lean in, not because you demanded its attention, but because your quiet, unshakable presence simply commanded it. If this message reached you, do 3 things before you go. Hit that like button to tell me you are ready to live this way. Comment the words "I win in silence" to seal it into your mind. And subscribe to this channel, because together we are learning the quiet art of becoming unshakable. Stay calm. Stay silent. Stay powerful. I will see you in the next one.